We have not counted the possible revenue sources associated with this strategy.
Cathie Wood is making a little bit of a mistake with Tesla stock. Her take on superchargers is a bit surprising to me because you know how much value she's assigning from superchargers to Tesla stock? Zero. I think it is really clear that Tesla will make money by allowing other automakers to charge at Tesla superchargers. And to be clear, I like Cathie Wood, I just think she's making a mistake here. Let's take a look at the full TV segment where Cathie Wood talks about Tesla stock as well as the GM and Tesla charging partnership, to which she assigns zero value.
General Motors joining Ford now in partnering with Tesla to use its charging network in North America. Under the deal, GM's electric vehicles will gain access to 12,000 of Tesla's fast chargers starting next year. And GM and Tesla shares both higher on that news. It is a very big deal. Joining us right now is ARK Invest CIO and CEO Cathie Wood. Tesla is, of course, the top holding of the ARK Innovation ETF. Cathie, we were discussing this just in the last hour. It's a remarkable thing I was listening to Spaces yesterday, Twitter Spaces, Elon Musk with Mary Barra, someone who has, it has been very hard for her to even utter the words Tesla over the years. And here is this partnership.
And if you think it's embarrassing for them to change their minds like this, you are definitely right in thinking so. This is a huge win for Tesla and EVs overall.
What does it mean, do you think, long term, both for Tesla, but also for the legacy automakers, GM and Ford?
I like how even news reporters now are calling Ford and GM legacy automakers, which is exactly what they should be called, although Ford has a better chance at surviving the transition to EVs. But if GM keeps making right moves like this, maybe GM will be fine too, although that's not too likely. The GM name is going to be around for a long time, but they are going to be shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And GM may need to go through bankruptcy again. But this was definitely the right move for GM.
Well, I think it's great for America and our transition to the electric future, as Elon said. And I do think it increases the probability that our forecast of 60 million electric vehicle sales by 27, it has increased the probability that that is right. We had globally 7.7 electric vehicles sold around the world last year. Going to 60 million and is going to completely dominate the industry. And I think having both General Motors and Ford on this charging network, which is the big gating factor, range anxiety, gets us there that much faster.
Until now, the only EV brand that really made sense to buy was Tesla. But from now on, that would start to change, because before, if you ever go anywhere outside your city and you need to stop at a charger, using these Electrify America chargers that often simply do not work was a really bad idea. I mean, 25% of them don't work, a study found, whereas compared with Tesla's network, 99+% of them actually work all the time. Keeping that in mind, I can see why someone now may want to buy a vehicle that's an EV and is not a Tesla. So for Tesla, this is great for Tesla's mission. And going forward, Tesla needs to really focus on the vehicle, because the charging network is no longer going to be a competitive advantage. I mean, you'll pay a little bit less for charging if you do have a Tesla, and you will probably have priority access, and you will still have more superchargers available that are specifically Tesla superchargers. But this will no longer really be a selling factor for potential Tesla customers. Which in the US, it really doesn't matter, because about 60% of people, when they buy an EV, they choose a Tesla anyway. So we want to have as many EVs as possible, because every time GM will make a new EV and then someone compares that EV to a Tesla EV, they will be like, yeah, I've been buying GM vehicles for decades now, but a Tesla is just so much more better. There's no way I'm buying a GM EV. So I believe this actually benefits Tesla, but Tesla needs to be really focused on making sure that Tesla EVs remain the very best choices in the long term. We can't get complacent here.
I think there's two questions. Some people would say great long-term, short-term and long-term for Ford and GM. Everybody's a winner in this. There are others that are concerned that say may be great for Ford and GM short term. I think there's almost no question about that. The question is what happens long term if effectively two of the largest American automakers are effectively driving sales effectively to Tesla, both in terms of the electric power piece of it and effectively the advertisement that is a Tesla charging station, what that means long term in terms of Elon Musk's ability to sell more vehicles, potentially even at cheaper prices.
You know, this reminds me of what happens with most technologies that proliferate and scale. There's a standard, and here we have a charging standard. Charging solves the range anxiety problem.
If I go outside the city, I still have a little bit of range anxiety, although not that much, but there is sometimes some inconvenience. For example, my friend just came back from a road trip. It was about a 5-hour road trip, and she went to a hotel and she stayed there, and supposedly they had a charger, and there was a supercharger location about 10 miles away from the hotel, but when she arrived at the hotel, the car only had 17% and the charger was taken, and she arrived there close to midnight. So the charger was taken. She had to wait for another person to finish charging, which took about maybe half an hour, and then she was able to use that charger, or she could have just gone to the supercharger location, drive 10 miles, which also would have been, you know, another 20 to 30 minutes. But with time, as more EVs are built, there will be a lot more superchargers everywhere. So that hotel later, instead of having just one charger that fits Teslas, it will have probably 10 or 15 or even more. With time, with these kind of partnerships, it will allow Tesla to build more superchargers in locations that are going to be closer to where you need them. But right now, actually already, even if you have to deal with these inconveniences, it is actually already more convenient overall to own an EV because you can charge at home and you don't need to go to a gas station. It's only less convenient if you go on road trips very often.
And what's also very interesting about this is it does help Tesla underwrite the charging station expense, because if you look at Tesla's sales, they are highly concentrated on the coasts. Now it's going to make a lot more sense for Tesla to roll out charging stations that much faster throughout the country.
Right. How much of their revenue and profits do you now imagine over time will be a function of the infrastructure part of their business versus the automobile manufacturing part of their business?
Because Tesla stock is still relatively low, supercharging is actually a big deal. Larry, who is a Tesla stock bull, he estimates that in the next 5 years, just supercharging alone will add $3 per share in earnings to Tesla stock. In last year, Tesla made $3.62 in earnings per share. So if you take Larry's numbers, and it also depends on what kind of multiple you use, but if you assign the same multiple that Tesla already has, you could make an argument that possibly the supercharging business alone could double Tesla stock from here. If you are more conservative and you take a multiple of 20 for price to earnings ratio, you multiply this by 20 and you get $60 that you can add to Tesla stock price additionally on top of where we are right now.
Well, actually, we think another revenue source is going to be much bigger. And of course, that's the autonomous taxi platform. And we think it's going to drive the valuation because the margins associated with autonomous are going to be SaaS-like. So instead of electric vehicle gross margins in the 25 to 30% range, we expect autonomous, the platform strategy, to deliver 80%, 90% margin. So the combined will be north of 50%.
In terms of the grid, though, that they're building and these charging stations, you think that's a small part of the business? Yeah, and the services that they may be able to layer on at some of those stations?
We have not counted. So we are in print at $2,000 in 2027, and we have not counted the possible revenue sources associated with this strategy. And we haven't even done much in the energy storage business away from electric vehicles, because we think the most valuable part of the business will be the scaling of vehicles to create this autonomous taxi platform.
Because Cathie Wood has such a huge price target for Tesla stock, I understand why she's not really willing to take her time and her team's time to look at the supercharging stations that Tesla can build out and calculate how much profit Tesla could actually make from these superchargers. Because she's not interested in adding, let's say, $100 additionally to her Tesla stock price target. Her Tesla stock price target already sounds bonkers to most people. But unless you're really considering the revenue and the profits from robotaxis, not including that in your calculation is going to be a mistake, I think. And even for Cathie Wood, well, I understand why she didn't take her time doing it, but I think it's still a little bit of a mistake to not include that calculation in her research. You may not assign much value to it, but I think you should at least try to calculate it roughly. If you have been watching my channel for at least 9 months, then you know that I'm actually also interested in cryptocurrencies. I don't own any right now, but I am interested, and Cathie Wood was asked a question about cryptocurrencies. Years ago, I had some Ethereum, but I sold it a few years later. Not only did Tesla seem like a lot less risky opportunity, but also a better opportunity too.
Cathie, the other big news of the week, and there are two parts of it. One included you in it, but was the SEC filing a civil case against Coinbase. On the back of that, you picked up some more shares of Coinbase. What's your thesis, and are you effectively betting against the government?
No, we're actually betting on the checks and balances inherent in our government. So you've got Gary Gensler, who's appointed by the executive branch, has to be ratified by the Senate. But we now have the judicial system and the legislative system studying and getting involved in this topic. And I think it's great. I think we're going to end up in the right place. Right now, the SEC regulation and uncertainty around it is chasing digital asset business away from this country. And I think the legislative branch understands it. This will be an election year issue. And I think the judicial branch is very interesting in terms of, the Voyager Binance case. The judge basically said, SEC, what are you doing? You can't prevent the sale of assets from this company to this company. The Grayscale case seems very logically going Grayscale's way. So hopefully we get a Bitcoin ETF. Right. And even the Ripple case, Gensler did not mention, or the SEC did not mention Ripple among the securities in these suits. So that's very interesting as well.
Late last year, I talked a little bit about cryptocurrencies. For a moment, I considered buying Bitcoin, and it would have worked out great. Year to date, Bitcoin is up almost 60%. But I'm so happy I didn't, because Tesla stock is up 125% year to date so far. If you bought Bitcoin, great for you. But if you bought Tesla stock, that was a smart move. Also, generally, I see that the risk with Bitcoin is a lot higher than with Tesla stock, because Tesla stock actually has cash flow and Bitcoin does not. There will be a day when Tesla will do a buyback. There will not be a day when Bitcoin will do a buyback. So with my stock portfolio, I'm staying 100% in Tesla. YouTube wants you to watch this video next, and suggestions are usually pretty good. But if you don't want to watch this one, then consider watching this one, in which I talk about Tesla starting to advertise. My name is Matt Postis. Like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.